All right, everyone, welcome back into another Prize Picks and Underdog NBA props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets today. But first, as always, I do like to do a quick recap from yesterday. So I'm going to use the screenshot from Twitter. 5 for 6 on the day. At the time I post this, Aiden was at 2 points and assists. Ended up, I believe, just at 12 points. So a basket and an assist away. He did not have any. What was annoying was that if you were looking at like the live projections, maybe on Underdog, which is what I was doing, it was up until like 2 minutes left in the game that he wasn't projected to get the over. So basically at all points of the game he was projected to get the over, so that sucked. I also had another one in there with D'Angelo Russell for over fantasy score. He did not close out the game and he ended up at like 35.6 fantasy points where he needed to get to like 36.5, so that was also a very annoying thing. All in all, I can't complain about a good day. Let's hope we can do that again today. And for what it's worth, guys, I ended up running out these as fantasy score ones as well. That ended up working out pretty well as well, a little bit better actually. And so again, I just want to echo like those props for those 4 players, like we've been crushing and they're just being undervalued, even though the Vegas data hasn't exactly caught up just yet, which is obviously Prize Picks and Underdog are kind of saying the same thing. So it's definitely still somewhat of a weird spot in NBA where, you know, they might not have caught up just yet. And that's why we like to look at the per 36 production, like Aaron Gordon, MPJ. Those are 2 players that have been undervalued with Jamal Murray off the court. And then you look at Maxey and Harris, with James Harden no longer there. They really haven't adjusted for, especially with Maxey, for that. So it's weird. But looking at the slate today, we only have 4 games today. We got Washington versus Toronto. 229.5 is the average over and under, a 9.5 point spread. So yes, the Wizards are one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league right now. DeLon Wright is currently listed as out. We look at the Raptors, maybe Gary Trent Jr. is noteworthy, but not too much injury wise. Like we know who's going to play in this game. And so guys, right away, I'll just show you guys the screen in case it updates. But now we're going to go ahead and get into kind of the best prop bets by team, seeing if we have any stacking opportunities. So let's start out with the dumpster fire that is the Washington Wizards. Kyle Kuzma, the source of frustration for over rebounds on the last slate, where it seemed like he was our best prop on the day, and then the minutes just randomly weren't there, and he didn't get over rebounds, right? Kind of tilting there. We can see that on this slate, however, the average sportsbook line would be favoring the under at 6.5 rebounds. Thus, Prize Picks and Underdog have just bumped it down to 6. Most likely going to be a push if you were to do that. And as it sits right now, he is literally the only player that we are getting props on. I'm not exactly sure why. We should be getting the full allotment of props. And so we'll go ahead and just take a peek here as to like what to expect in this game. Like DeLon Wright being out doesn't really shift much, guys. Like he's gotten maybe, we see it, the minutes are spread out, like maybe 20 minutes on average, like not that much there. I wouldn't think that that'd be enough to shift the slate. Now, maybe they're just having a tough time trying to gauge what's going to occur in this game. Tyus Jones is someone that you would think would get a minutes bump. Jordan Poole has been terrible. Maybe they just don't know what to do there. Or maybe there's just some news that we are waiting on. Maybe Poole is going to sit in this game. I don't exactly know what's going on there. We have seen Denny kind of step up and be a more consistent fantasy producer. Heck, he's kind of been their second best player thus far. I'm actually curious as to where his line comes out to be. I want to point out that like he had 14 points while shooting 1 for 8 from 3-ball range. Like that's terrible. But it's also kind of crazy that he got 8 3-ball attempts as well. All in all, his minutes somewhat seem secure. I don't want to give a take on him, but, you know, something to monitor. I do think while Jordan Poole is struggling, he's going to be someone that continues to step up. But also, like Kyle Kuzma is just not getting a lot of minutes as well. Like he should be getting 36 minutes. Jordan Poole should be getting 36 minutes, and they're just spreading out the production. We got Gafford there as well, who 16 minutes in the last game. He continues not to get run, which is also frustrating. We also saw Danilo Gallinari kind of be productive on a points per minute basis. So yeah, I can see why the data might not be there, because who knows, right? Who knows what to expect from this Wizards team besides Kuzma getting around 30 minutes. So I guess I get it. All in all, we're probably just staying away from it then. That's crazy. That is really crazy. Let's go ahead and get into Toronto. Toronto, we have a couple of good props on. Good EV bet is going to be Jakob Poeltl for over 0.5 steals. So if you guys want to go ahead and use that one, it's a very good one, obviously. Let's take a peek at that as to why that is a good one. So Jakob Poeltl is someone that, you know, 2 steals, 3 steals, hasn't been a steal machine. Maybe this is more a matchup thing going against Toronto where they are a little bit sloppy with the basketball. I'm actually curious to take a peek at that. Gafford turnovers, he's averaging at least 1 per game. Kyle Kuzma, we saw his over and under turnovers was set at 2.5 in this game. So I'd say maybe there's some sort of correlation there. Jordan Poole averaging like 2 turnovers per game. So yeah, I get it. That's basically what that line is telling us, is that Washington just is prone to turnover in the basketball. So someone like Joachim Poeltl could be a good option for us. We also see that we're getting a couple of under bets. Dennis Schroeder for under points and rebounds at 10.5. We got Joachim Poeltl for under rebounds. Sorry, they're both rebounds and assists at 11.5 for Joachim Poeltl. Turnovers, Dennis Schroeder at 1.5. Yeah, I don't like any of these, right? It's a 4-game slate. We're probably not going to like much. To me, these all seem a little bit too thin. I do just want to mention Scotty Barnes, points, rebounds, and assists, because to me, that is a little bit too low. He had been someone that we had been trusting pretty much night in and night out, and the worry was the matchup with Boston, okay? And we saw that come true. Now he gets a really good matchup going against Washington. To me, I think he should feast given the matchup tonight. And maybe this is a situation where we're trying to look for him to be more of a fantasy score one. But in that last game, we saw 29 minutes. They got blown out. Heck, even if you give him his 10 to 7 or so more minutes that he typically would get on a night, it's not as far off as kind of this graphic would show. And really, the whole team just had a bad night. So it makes sense. So I really don't mind this one. Let's see his projected minutes here. Click on it, scroll down, 35. So yeah, as long as he does get 35 minutes, regardless of this game being a blowout or not, he should be able to get there. And we might be forcing it a little bit, trying to find a good prop bet today, but like not exactly a close game against Dallas, not exactly a close game against Philly. Still got the minutes against Milwaukee. They kind of blew them out. He was part of the reason as to why it was a blowout. And so other than this game against Boston, where it was never really close, the minutes are pretty much locked in. So yeah, I think Scotty Barnes for over points and rebounds is going to be a good bet. I wish the data liked it a little bit more. Again, that's kind of the issue that we've had early on in this NBA season. And maybe it's just like a knowledge thing where I don't want to just blindly trust the EV bets that we are getting because of situations like this where I just don't think the data has caught up to his role with the Raptors, especially given the matchup. So we go ahead and move on into the next game. We got the New York Knicks versus the Boston Celtics here. 9.2 spread. Boston is favored by, so 3 games just right off the bat, guys, that are projected to be blowouts. Don't love that. It does make it a little bit more difficult to predict, but we can see the average over and under for this game is set at 222.5. So kind of a game that's not going to be that appealing. Let's take a peek at the injury report here. We are good to go. These teams are good to go. So in theory, we should be getting some good bets. Let's touch on those. So we'll start out with New York here. We do have the fantasy score props populating in here, and we are seeing Jalen Brunson for under 35.5 for his fantasy score. Going against Boston, I would say that makes sense. Going against Drew Holiday makes sense. I'm actually annoyed that we're not getting a Scotty Barnes fantasy score prop where we are getting a fantasy score prop for everyone else. Yeah, there might be something going on in that Washington game. Just it's weird that we don't have that just yet. But yes, let's take a peek at Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has been someone that has been struggling. Like even against Charlotte, you would have thought he would have feasted in that game. He did not. So he's been more hit or miss, don't get me wrong. But now, given a tougher matchup, I do expect him to struggle. I want to see if that correlates with the other prop bet that we're kind of seeing as decent for RJ Barrett for over his fantasy score. Now that only has a 53% likelihood, and it does correlate well with his points, so you might be better off just rolling with that. But let's take a peek at that, because I want to see the games in which Jalen Brunson struggles if RJ Barrett gets his over. Somewhat, I would say, somewhat there. Let's just take a peek at RJ Barrett's shot attempts, how he's been shooting the basketball. And really, again, like I think Jalen Brunson is going to demand some defensive attention. Thus, we're going to see RJ Barrett maybe get some better open looks. He's been hot. He's been very hot shooting the basketball, but 4 for 6, 5 for 9, 2 for 4, 3 for 5. Like he's been shooting the basketball well, but really this whole season he's been shooting the basketball well. We're seeing him average around 15 to 16 shot attempts as well, which is huge. You know, if he makes half of those with 1 or 2 of those being threes, that's great. If he gets to the free throw line like he has been, you know, a few times per game, that 18.5 points is going to be appealing. To me, I do kind of like the correlation there where maybe Brunson struggles. We bet the over for RJ Barrett there. Another one that we saw was actually Mitchell Robinson for under his fantasy score. Let's take a peek at that. And with Mitchell Robinson, we know it does depend on how many minutes he's going to get. He's someone that has been able to stay out of foul trouble this season, which good for him, which has led to him getting more minutes. And so let's take a peek at this fantasy score one at 23. This is one where I will say if he gets 30 minutes, he should be able to get the over there. This would be a bet on the game blowing out and blowing out quickly. I'm probably staying away from that one. Again, I probably like the over here, but because the day is telling us something else, I'm just going to go and say let's not touch that. And then from there, we see if we are getting any other props here. Not really. I want to take a peek at the Quentin Grimes one, though, just real quick, just because I wonder if he's someone that would be locked into getting minutes regardless of a blowout. No, not really. Okay, so he's someone that if it stays close, he's going to get more minutes. if it's a blowout, he's subject to not get that many minutes. Okay, so probably not touching that as well. Let's go ahead and talk about Boston then. All right, so looking at Boston, we are seeing Tatum and White for under their fantasy scores. I was going to say we better be having like Porzingis for over his fantasy score then, especially in this matchup, Jaylen Brown as well. And so there is some correlation there. Let's take a peek at kind of all those fantasy scores to see whether or not we agree. So we'll start out with Derek White. We saw his is under. He's been a little bit hit or miss. Really, I want to see like Derek White's fantasy score when he misses. So let's take a peek at Toronto and Washington compared to maybe Jaylen Brown. Toronto, Brown got the over there, and then Drew Holiday. Not exactly a full sample size. And like Boston has been blowing out teams as well. So this game is projected to be a blowout again. It's kind of one of those situations where it does feel like you're playing with fire because obviously if they're blowing out a team, one of their players are going off, whether it's Tatum, and Tatum can go off and still not get there, guys. Like his line is probably a little bit too high tonight. And I would say if he doesn't get there, then yes, we are assuming that Porzingis is going to be the beneficiary there. Also, has been a little bit sporadic as well, but he gets a little bit, I don't want to say better of a matchup, but almost more appealing. All in all, we're probably staying away. I mean, these aren't 54% likely to hit. I know it's a 4-game slate, and we probably won't get that. If you guys want to run out some correlated bets there, you could. Let's just go ahead and move on into the next game. Hopefully, we can get some better bets. I haven't wrote down any bets just yet. And so we look at the Bulls versus the Bucks. To me, we are gaining a very good fantasy score for Lillard, and I'll touch on that. But we can see almost a 9-point spread. 228 is the average over and under. So in terms of high scoring, kind of an appealing game. I think these two teams are a little bit easier to predict. We look at the injury report. Caruso, a game time decision. Jay Crowder is out, and Lillard is a game time decision as well, but he is expected to play. We take a peek at the projected starting lineup. Yes, Lillard is in. Caruso, tough to say for sure whether he's not going to change the starting lineup. I think we're going to see Torrey Craig in the starting lineup regardless, but it is something to monitor. And for some reason right now, guys, we're not getting any props on the Chicago Bulls. Again, maybe it's just the blowout risk. They don't exactly know where to go with that. I do want to touch on the per 36 production with Caruso off the court. Now, it was the front end of back-to-back the last game, and he sat out. So, maybe on the back end of the back-to-back, he's more likely to play. I don't know for sure. But what we do know is that Caruso has been getting some heavy minutes, 31, 20, 14, 26, basically around 25 minutes per game, kind of depending on how he was playing. If he sits, I do think that Torrey Craig in a weird way is going to benefit. And I'm actually curious if that holds up to the per 36 production. That's what I want to look at. All right, so this season with Caruso off the court, the starters are the ones getting the most minutes. It goes Kobe White, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. That makes sense. And then it is Torrey Craig, and then it's Patrick Williams, and then it is Ayo, which is way down there. Minutes wise. So it does seem to be a concentrated kind of minute share. Like we might just see Kobe White get a few more minutes in this game. Like we could probably lock him into around 30. And I don't think the game really matters whether it's a blowout or not. Like if it stays close enough for long enough, we might see him get 35 minutes. But he's someone that, might step up. We look at his data with Caruso off the court. Does average about a 2% bump in usage, but nothing significant. Caruso's not a high usage rate player. He's kind of a scrappy guy. We kind of know that, right? So I don't think we can expect massive differences at all. And all in all, it probably just shifts the minutes to the starters a little bit more. But I don't know, guys. As a Bucks fan, I think that line is kind of interesting because the Bucks haven't really been awesome yet. Weird way to phrase it, but they've been struggling. And so I do want to call out like Damian Lillard. I do think he's going to have a good game in this one. I just want to show you guys his fantasy score line. Like to me at 39, this is too low. We saw him kind of start to get better. This team is somewhat getting more chemistry. And all in all, I think at the start of the season, had we seen that line where it was, we would have been just going in on it. Now I do want to call out the data is basically saying, okay, it's a 50-50 split, whether or not he's going to hit there. The projection data does like it a little bit more at 44. So I do want to touch on why. Like he's been shooting the three ball a bunch. He just hasn't been making them. And eventually he's going to have a good day shooting the three ball. It's just going to happen. And in a game where they're projected to win by that much, that's kind of what the data is telling me. Maybe it's more of a game stack. We did see we have a bunch of over fantasy scores for the Bucks that we want to be targeting. Brook Lopez for over fantasy score is one. Giannis over fantasy score is another. Both 52% likelihoods to hit. Not great, but also not terrible. And so let's touch on those two. For Brook, his line is clearly a little bit too low. Vucevic has strangely been struggling. At the same time, so has Brook Lopez. And so it's tough really for me to gauge whether or not we want to go in on that. Assuming that the minutes are there, assuming that they do blow out Chicago, given the fact that the line is correct, I would think Brook would be able to get this over. At the same time, to me, it does feel like we're forcing a little bit. Again, though, if he does get the minutes, and let's actually see the minutes he's projected to get here, because that will kind of scope how we do it. 28. Yeah, if he gets 28 minutes, you would imagine he'd be able to get like a block or two that probably helps him get the over. I want to take a peek at Giannis as well. Giannis is kind of just in effort mode after that Indy game where he got tossed out for no reason. And also we have seen that Lillard was out in those two games. Now in the press, two slates, I kind of mentioned, I do think, one of the Bucks players are going to sit. And so if you want to bet the overs on them, go for it. Like, kind of try to game script based on that, go for it. Against Orlando, I said, we don't know if Lillard's playing or not. We had a 3-slip bet that was a 4-slip bet with Giannis where the data was telling us to bet the less than, which I said, let's do that. But then let's also run it back and bet the over there, because if Lillard is ruled out, Giannis is going to crush that over, which is what he did. That slip ended up being a good day for us because of that. I don't think we need to worry about that today. I think we're good. I think the injury report's fine. Now, yes, NBA injury reports change all the time. Burks and Ivy for the Pistons were two players that were ruled out yesterday, ended up playing, which actually hurt an individual prop bet that I recommended in Killian Hayes. Like that got significantly worse then. That stuff's going to happen, but all in all, it does seem like we can trust that Lillard's going to start today. But all in all, I do kind of feel like I want to stack, and I think I might just go over for these two at least, and then we'll see from there. I really wish we were getting Chicago props. I don't get that. What's crazy about Brook Lopez, guys, look at his points, rebounds, and assists compared to his fantasy score, 24. That's a big difference, and that's just that's just really dependent on him getting like 2 blocks. So kind of interesting there. Malik Beasley as well, 7 points. Let's actually take a peek at that. And the reason I'm curious about that one is I want to see the minutes with Jay Crowder off the court. Like, who's benefiting the most from that? Jay Crowder, for what it's worth, is someone that's been getting around 30 minutes. So, like, this is significant. We can see the shot attempts, it's been a little bit sporadic, but still, minutes are there. There's going to be some missing production. So I'm actually curious if Beasley is benefiting from that. And it is. It goes Giannis, Beasley, Portis, Middleton's someone that could be a healthy scratch. I doubt it, for what it's worth. He's still only playing about 20 minutes. So yeah, Beasley, let's look at his per 36 production with Crowder off the court. And I think we'll have to look at his projected minutes. He might be someone that does get around 33 minutes in this game, depending on if it stays close or not. And looking at his per 36 production, averages 5.8 points, so not exactly appealing there, 5.8 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. So I don't know if he exactly benefits too much. And we look at his per 36 production, that's actually a little bit lower with Crowder off the court. Probably not a big enough sample size. He does average 8 points on the season. And I'm guessing that's the case, just not a big enough sample size. But I do think we can bank on him getting more run. So we're getting any other one, steals, maybe points and rebounds. That's probably the one I would want to go on the most. Interesting. Maybe that's something you guys can do there, like maybe attach it to a game stack where we're doing Giannis and also Lillard. Let's see any other ones here. I mean, honestly, maybe just fantasy score. What's his per 36 production? 17.6 points per 36 with Crowder off the court. It's basically a 50-50 split. The projection data would have it set at 16 though, just heavily favoring the under there. Projected to get 26 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. That might be a little bit too low. That's where I'm saying if he gets 4 more minutes, he should be able to get the over there. I don't mind that one. Does feel a little bit too thin, but again, it's a 4-game slate. We don't have much on the slate to go off of. And so now we go ahead and get into the last game, kind of the most appealing game on the slate, the Cavaliers versus the Kings. Okay, at 3-point spread, 221.5 for the average over and under. So a very appealing game in terms of predictability. Like, it shouldn't be a blowout. Isaac Okoro is still out. Okay, so kind of significant. He's someone that's been getting minutes. And then De'Aaron Fox is currently a game time decision. This could be the make or break point in a lot of our bets, honestly. He is currently expected to sit though. So we're going to go based off of that assumption. We hope that it's right. I also want to call it the minutes here. So Jared Allen is seeing his minutes kind of tick up, 28 minutes. And I hate this with players like this. Like, the NBA has been so weird with their injury reporting where they'll say someone's minutes are limited, but then I don't know how much more minutes do we expect Jared Allen to get on a nightly basis, like 4, 3. Like, Evan Mobley doesn't play that many more minutes regardless anyways. Like, that's what's annoying. So all in all, if he's getting 28 minutes, I think we're kind of fine with probably whichever props we are getting. Let's talk about Isaac Okoro being out. So he's been playing 20 to 30 minutes per game. Like, that is a big minute share that's gone as well. I do believe we saw Max Strus step up into a bigger role. I mean, he's been playing a lot of minutes as well, but he's been kind of a consistent fantasy producer. I'm actually curious, though, if to that correlates with Okoro off the court. And so looking at, Max Strus is the player that does get the most minutes. He's not a high usage rate player by any means, and he actually sees less usage with Okoro off the court. That doesn't really make sense to me. I think that's just more Darius Garland has been back while Okoro's been out. I think that's why. But for Strus, his per 36 fantasy score is 28.1. It's actually a little bit lower. Again, I think that's just due to Darius Garland being back. And actually, let's just put that into the sample size. So with Garland on the court, yes, it does change it. So Max Strus does average basically what he's averaging this season. Then 30 fantasy points per 36, 14.4 points, 6.3 rebounds, and only 2.1 assists. So basically the same thing. All in all, though, I do think he has a little bit more safety. And let's talk about Darius Garland as well. His minutes have not been limited. He's been playing extremely well. I don't think we worry about the matchup too much with the Kings. I think maybe hopefully we have a stacking opportunity. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what the data is telling us for this game. And so we get into the Kings, let's start out with Cleveland. And very nice. All right, so I don't mind this for Darius Garland. For over 33 for a fantasy score, to me, isn't that the first bet where what I prefaced the slate with, the game with, is actually matching up with what the data is saying? Like, it is crazy how much that's been occurring, where we haven't had the kind of how I see the game going and how the data sees the game going as like matching up. We have that today. Very good with Garland. So let's touch on this. Let's look at his projected minutes. 35 minutes. We're good with that. And so looking at this, guys, like his production with Okoro off the court, like I don't think it's a big sample and we probably don't care about it too much, but 21.3 points per 36, 3.5 rebounds, 7.2 assists, 2.2 steals, a 27% usage rate, which is about a 6% bump, and then 39 fantasy points per 36. So a pretty appealing prop at 33. And we'll take a peek at him fantasy score wise. He has been someone that has been playing better as of recent. And if we look at these games, like they were limiting his minutes in those games, the first two against Indy and Brooklyn. So now we can project him to get a few more minutes, thus probably going to get more likely of having the over there. Honestly, if you do give him 4 more minutes, at least against the game in Indy, I do think he does get that over. Same thing with Golden State the first time around, only 30 minutes in that game. So yeah, I think the data hasn't caught up to this just yet. And we did see Max Strus at a very low fantasy score line here. Let's touch on that. I would say probably a little bit too low. Again, averages about 30 fantasy points per 36 with Garland on the court and Okoro off the court. I want to see where that's coming out to be. We are seeing his points, rebounds, and assists at 18.5, seemingly be a decent one. So at 23, we're pretty much saying that he's going to get a steal and a couple of assists. Let's see there. I want to see Strus's fantasy score. Oh, it's up here. 52% likelihood for him to get the over. So I would probably agree with that. I think we're good with that. And then let's talk about Jared Allen, a 53% likelihood to hit. Again, guys, like the magic number we're always searching for is 54% likelihood or more to hit. It's just kind of how it goes. So let's look at Allen here. All in all, I don't think we're really too worried about the matchup. The minutes, again, we're hoping that he gets 30 minutes or 28 minutes in this game. We probably need him getting a block or something like that to get there, which probably need a little bit more from him. But as long as he is getting 28 minutes, like if we just look at these 3 games, he's basically been right there. If you add a block on there, which I'm not saying we can do, but all in all, he's someone that should be getting a block. Not terrible. Maybe a little bit too thin, but not terrible. And we see that, guys. Like, I want to point this out. Like, they're basically saying he's going to get a block by putting his fantasy score at 26 or a steal. I guess that's what it is, probably a block and a steal. So if you don't think he's going to do that, then you'd want to bet it at 20.5 for his points and rebounds. That's kind of it. I don't think we need to get into Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, if Mitchell's going off, it's going to hurt Garland's likelihood to get the over, but I'm not saying like you want to bet the under there by any means. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on into the Kings. I'm kind of surprised at how many prop bets we are getting here for them. Keegan Murray, the source of frustration here. So let's talk about with De'Aaron Fox off the court. We have a pretty darn big sample size now with Fox off the court for this squad. So with Fox off the court, it is Sabonis getting heavy minutes, as we would have thought. Keegan Murray, then Barnes, then Mitchell, then Herter, then Monk, and then a big drop off. So basically the players that are typical starters are the players we can bank on. Now it does depend on whether it's Keon Ellis or Davion Mitchell starting. And we have seen Davion Mitchell coming off the bench a little bit more. Thus Keon Ellis has been getting around 22. He had 30 minutes in the last game. So certainly something that's noteworthy. And I'm actually curious, does that help or hurt anyone? It's going to be a small sample size. It actually helps Sabonis slightly with Ellis on the court rather than Mitchell. Herter benefits as well. Keegan Murray slightly benefits as well, but very small sample size, probably not noteworthy. But yeah, so let's take a peek at Sabonis. Like, you would think that this would be a more difficult matchup going against Cleveland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, but it really hasn't been. And we have seen Sabonis finally step up over the past few games. He had been someone that kind of had been struggling thus far this season. Now, yes, it's a matchup with OKC. It's a matchup with Portland. You would expect him to kind of have the games that he had. And really with Fox off the court thus far this season, he hasn't been dominating. Like, he's only had 19 points per 36, 12.2 rebounds, and only 7.7 assists per 36. Almost averaging a block and a steal, though, so that's very nice. The issue, I shouldn't say the issue, but the reason why he's been dominating lately is because the assists have been up a little bit, and that's obviously going to help. But I do think it was a matchup thing. Granted, let's see where the lines are coming for him. Nothing too much for Sabonis. I mean, maybe 8 for his assists. If the game stays close, he's basically averaging 8 assists per 36. The thing with him is he might get more than 36 minutes, projected to get 35, but if the game stays close, could get 37. Sabonis points and rebounds, I probably don't want to touch that one tonight. Rebounds and assists, again, probably don't want to touch that tonight. His fantasy score might be a little bit too low if we are running out of game stack. Like, we probably are going to do Strus and Garland. You could do Allen, and then I wouldn't mind Sabonis for over. Just he has been playing better as of recent. Again, it is the matchups, don't get me wrong. It's basically a 50-50 split. The data is saying a little bit lower, so I don't love that. It's just interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to do there. Let's move on to Keegan Murray. I do want to mention him and Kevin Herter. So Keegan Murray has definitely been annoying. You would have thought he would have stepped up into a bigger role with De'Aaron Fox off the court, and maybe it's just a weird kind of adjustment for them and for the Kings and him. Finally, last game against OKC, again, a pretty easy matchup. We saw him get heavy minutes in that game. Still 3 for 10. Like, he hasn't had a good night shooting in a while. Eventually, he's going to make some threes. Fact of the matter is, we can project him to get a lot of minutes. And I just want to see if we are getting any good props on him. Like, I don't like the rebounds and assists under. I would say he probably does get to 8. I don't want to touch that. Keegan Murray over fantasy score. Like, I probably would favor the over there, guys. But again, like, the Kings had played 2 good matchups in a row, so I do think I have a little bit of recency bias into that. So yeah, probably just staying away, I guess. Let's go into Harrison Barnes. We saw his fantasy score over was one we could potentially target. Again, that feels a little bit too thin. I probably don't want to touch that. It's crazy. Harrison Barnes started out the season with a massive game, and then since then, not much. His minutes have been a little bit limited as well. Yeah, probably just staying away from that one. Let's take a peek at Kevin Herter. He is someone that has at least been a source of consistency for this team, and maybe that'd be the one I would want to go in on, but we are seeing the data doesn't like that. They're telling us to bet the under. So maybe rebounds and assists at 7.5. Again, that one feels probably a little bit too thin. No, that's basically what he averages on the season, slightly more. Granted, the game should stay close, so we should be able to get those minutes. Probably a little bit too thin. And then real quickly, just want to show you guys some potential hockey props as well, seeing if we can pair these up. I don't mind this Nathan McKinnon one, where the average sportsbook line is kind of favoring the under at 1.3. PrizePicks and Underdog still have it set at 1.5. So there is a slight edge there, and that's really the best one that we have. Jared McCain potentially, but he's only projected to get 2.8, so I don't really want to touch that too much for shots on goal. If you want to roll with McKinnon under points, you can do that. It does feel a little bit too thin, but we can see odds-wise pretty darn good. And then real quickly, let's touch on some football props, seeing if we're getting any good ones there. I do this so we can put out our best bet of the day. We're seeing Josh Allen. This is something that has been adjusted by Underdog. Their Underdog fantasy score line was at 22 earlier. Now it's at 23. Still, PrizePicks is seemingly the highest one amongst the group. And I hate that doesn't correlate well with the next best prop, which is Stephon Diggs for over fantasy score. Interesting there. We got Alex Singleton as a projected push at 9. That's okay. And really, guys, that is it. We're not getting that many great props in that game. Again, we are seeing some prop line differences, though. Fantasy score wise, so maybe that's something we could go in on. I'll touch on that in a separate video. So most likely just going to be a small NBA bet slip. Let's get into that. Oh wait, first, always I want to show you guys Underdog. Let's get into that side of it. And so we are still seeing Joachim Poeltl over steals. I'm probably going to put that one on the slip. I don't love it, but it's an EV bet. We have a good one. I think that might be there by the time you guys get there as well. And just a reminder, that is why I do the fantasy score props, because I can depend on those to most likely be there throughout the whole day and not change too much. Whereas the other ones, we're getting good EV bets. PrizePicks Underdog, they're going to adjust. So guys, these are currently going to be the best bets that we have available on the slate today. This is stuff that can change. I don't exactly love betting the unders on Brunson and Tatum for fantasy points, but we are seeing those are some bets that we want to be making. Beasley for 7.5 points. I'm hoping that doesn't get bumped by the time this video is put out. I saw Underdog just bumped it to 8. Yakin Pertl is about, that probably will get bumped as well, unfortunately. And then Darius Garland and Jaron Allen, they both have about a 53% likelihood for their prop bets to hit. So I do like those ones. And then just for what it's worth, showing you guys the best bets that we have available on the board as it sits right now. You could bet Mitchell Robinson under his fantasy score if you want to roll with that. DeMar DeRozan under fantasy score is another one that's popping up. These are all kind of okay ones, but we can see on the slate, not exactly the best slate just yet. But that's going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any good EV bets when I start the video out. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. If you guys want access to the 9to5sports.com PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet tools, it is available for just $10 a month. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing. Thanks.